Pranam felt the wind resonate in her chest long before the Tuk-Tuk's jade-inlaid spirit chamber began to hum. That subtle pressure behind her ribs, half sigh, half heartbeat, meant Vayu was awake again, testing the brass lattice that held him like a gilded birdcage. "Easy," she whispered in Thai, palming the steering bar. "We'll stretch your wings tonight." The other drivers lining Soirachadamno thought she was talking to herself. They couldn't hear the wind spirits the way Pranam could. Most of them barely remembered that a living presence lived under the hood. To them, the tuk-tuks were just one step newer than the gas ones, grandfathered out after the Clean Sky Proclamation. Capture a spirit, seal it in an alloy womb, and churn out pollution-free rides for tourists. Progress, the committee said, progress had rarely tasted like metal shavings and captivity. Pranam's family had driven motorized rickshaws for 4 generations. She still kept her granddad's grease-stained driver log in the glove box, but her father sold their old 2-stroke-the-year Bangkok Promise tax breaks for anyone who converted to Animo vehicles. She would never forget how animated he'd been describing the limitless gust. The giant turbines along the Chao Phraya, the factories in Pathum Thandi where monks and engineers chanted mantras to coax wind deities into canisters. What he glossed over, because the brochures did, was the part where the canisters were welded shut. The tuk-tuk beside her honked. Pornchai, round and cheerful even in the sticky pre-Songkran heat, leaned out. "Whose face are you daydreaming about, Nong?" He flicked cool water from an aluminium bowl toward her, a playful prelude to tomorrow's full-blown water festival. Pranam raised a hand in mock surrender. "Just waiting for my fare. Thought you'd have a queue already. Foreigners love a woman driver." Pornchai winked, pulled goggles over his eyes and sped off toward Khao San Road, the aquamarine exhaust mist curling behind him like incense. Soon, Pranam thought, I'll be the one leaving trails in the sky. She patted the teak panel above the spirit chamber. The hum settled to a purr, Vayu's version of a nod ocean. They had been conversing for months, ever since she discovered she could loosen one segment of lattice without tripping the municipal seals. Not enough to let him escape, but enough that the two could speak without static. And plan. Tonight the city would start drenching itself in blessed water. Tourists would slosh through alleys firing neon squirt guns, and locals would hurl buckets off balconies in the name of renewal. The committee's inspectors, already overworked, would hunker in offices praying their clipboards stayed dry. That chaos would cloak her jailbreak. 7 major tuk-tuk depots ringed the old city. The largest sat behind the Grand Palace, in what used to be an underutilized bus garage. 200 shimmering vehicles slept there at night, each with a spirit inside. Pranam's goal was not some clumsy mass liberation. She had counted guards, studied patrol cycles, bribed a janitor for floor plans. She would steal only 8, the oldest models, the ones whose spirits had been caged first. Free those, create a sky-shaking spectacle, and public sympathy might do the rest. Once Bangkok saw spirits dancing overhead, no charm-stamped council decree would hold. The whom in the panel thrummed higher, impatient. "Patience," she murmured. Sunset. A pair of German backpackers flagged her. She ferried them toward Chinatown, weaving through pedestrian rivers swelling for Songkran's Eve, each splash of scented water landing on her windshield like a blessing. She took no more fares after that. At 6, she parked under a jacaranda whose purple blossoms drifted down like errant kite tails. She snapped off her driver vest and replaced it with an indigo pa-kao-ma tied pirate-style over her chest, easier to climb in. Fingerless gloves, rubber-soled shoes, and a coil of silk rope completed the ensemble. Bangkok's skyline glimmered as lanterns blinked awake. Gold-leaf spires, glass office towers, and satellite dishes all punctured the bruised haze of dusk. It looked solid, like something you could step across if you trusted the spaces between. She intended to. "Ready?" she asked. A breeze funneled through the alley, though the night was otherwise windless. It riffled her short hair, answered yes. She slid onto the driver bench, twisted the brass key, and felt Vayu's surge slam forward. The tuk-tuk leapt, tires spitting sparks as it hit a ramp she'd fashioned from discarded plywood. For an instant they were weightless. Then they landed on the tin veranda of the adjacent shophouse with the clank of a gong. Roof tiles shattered, a cat bolted, but nobody below noticed. A squad of teenagers were busy soaking each other with hoses, shrieking with delight. Pranom grinned. 1 down, 50 roofs to go. The path she'd scouted traced a jagged stairway of low warehouses, neon signs, and royal-sponsored solar awnings. Each gap was less than 4 meters, achievable if Vayu angled his gusts under the chassis. They were a duet. She steered, he propelled. Tile shards and billboard confetti fluttered behind them like wedding rice. When a gap stretched 10 meters over Yawarat Road, Pranam's pulse faltered. "Can you?" she thought. "Trust me," Vayu replied, a whisper inside her blood. She gunned the accelerator. The tuk-tuk shot off an air-conditioning duct, soared over the churning mass of revelers below, and landed on a sushi bar's corrugated roof, shocks whining. Someone in the street sprayed upward. Water arced and scattered mid-air, never reaching. The crowd roared approval, assuming it was part of the festival spectacle. Stars hid behind monsoon smog. But Pranam felt them cheering too. She and Vayu had become a shooting star themselves, brief and impossible. They reached the depot wall at 1947 by her watch. The garage squatted like a sleeping bullfrog, squat concrete draped in propaganda banners. Clean sky, clean heart. Its roller door was still open. Drivers trickled in, engines dimming to lullaby. A guard in white uniform checked IDs, another circled the perimeter. 2 more lounged by a drone perch, sipping iced coffee. She parked behind a billboard of a cartoon cloud wearing temple sunglasses. "Time for the hard part," she muttered. "First, disable the cameras." She removed a palm-sized amulet from her pocket, a black jade disc etched with Vayu's glyph. The spirit flexed. Air wobbled over the disc and bent light around her like a fisheye lens. Pranam darted across the street. Anyone glancing would see a heat shimmer, nothing more. She slid up a drainpipe, shimmied onto a sill, and yanked open an access hatch she'd loosened last week. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over lines of tuk-tuks, as neatly spaced as monks at dawn prayer. Their spirit chambers gleamed. The drivers had hung their coloured sashes on hooks. Done for the night. Pranam slipped cat-like along catwalks until she reached Tu2 Cat 041, an early prototype. She knelt, pressed hot fingertips to its lattice. The metal was feverish. The spirit inside sensed her. "Freedom comes tonight," she promised in a hush. A sigh like autumn leaves creaked through ducts. She repeated the vow to 7 more vehicles, each older than the last. The moment her charm key touched a lock, Vayu streamed through her, instructing. The lattice joint sprang apart. A slip of wind leaked but paused, awaiting the signal. Pranam felt 8 distinct pulses now, each unique, cool sea salt, dry desert swirl, loamy jungle whisper. They were siblings meeting through prison bars. The last lock clicked just as footsteps echoed. She ducked behind a pillar. The guard sauntered past, whistling a Luke Thung ballad. Oblivious. Once he vanished, Pranam hustled back, climbed into 041's driver's seat. "Follow me," she breathed. Then louder, "Now." 8 tuk-tuks roared awake simultaneously, but not with the hushed purr regulators expected. These were tsunamis of sound. Gale howls, hurricane throat songs. The vehicles shot forward, knocking chocks aside, fishtailing into one another until they sorted their positions like migrating geese. Sirens blared, guards gaped. Pranam's fingers flew over the console. Vayu flooded transmission channels, letting the freed spirits communicate. "Hold formation. Ascend." They didn't have runway length, so they improvised vertical. Air condensed beneath the chassis into turquoise tornado funnels. 1 heartbeat, 2, and the convoy rose. 50 centimeters, a meter, 3. Sheet metal screamed as the depot roof bowed. The roller door was still open. They angled out like bees from a paper nest, clipping fluorescent tubes that burst in showers of sparks. Spotlights stabbed skyward. "Unauthorized airborne vehicles?" a guard shouted into his radio. "Repeat, airborne tuk-tuks over the palace sector." Pranam smiled grimly. Good. The more dramatic, the better. They banked east toward the river. On the ground, water fight pandemonium only widened. Faces upturned at the absurd procession. Phones emerged. Live streams bloomed. Someone put a EDM remix to the footage in real time. She heard the bass below like distant thunder. Halfway over Sanam Luang, blue police drones rose. Sleek carbon fibre, four-prop rotors equipped with taser darts keyed to metal hulls. The convoy scattered in an asterisk pattern, wind spirits laughing in cyclonic voices. A drone dived. A gust slapped it sideways into a fireworks display launching from a hotel barge. Phone. Shit. Red chrysanthemums erupted across the sky. Pranam's tuk-tuk brushed the roof of Wat Phra Kei. Turquoise and emerald tiles flashed inches away. She imagined the Emerald Buddha himself nodding approval. She kicked the throttle. Vayu hurled them up onto the gabled spine, tyres finding momentary grip. From there, Pranam leapt across a gap onto the Royal Thai Navy Auditorium. Two of the liberated tuk-tuks followed, the others wove parallel tracks. It felt less like a jailbreak now and more like a parade no city planner could have scripted. Her headset crackled. Someone had patched into the public emergency channel. "Drivers, you are in violation of..." She clicked it off. Out of range, out of patience. The convoy converged atop Phra Pin Clow Bridge. Traffic had stalled below, cars trapped between curiosity and fear. Good. That gave her platform enough. Time for phase 2. Demonstrate choice. She braked. The other tuk-tuks circled like kites tethered to an unseen pole. Under the bridge, festival boats sprayed perfumed water into the air. Droplets drifted upward in the spirit's updraft, sparkling like constellations. Pranam climbed onto her tuk-tuk's roof. Wind whipped her bandana. She pulled a bronze chisel from her belt. The same tool monks used to open snub-nosed stupas. One by one, she smashed the remaining lattice ribs. Freed fully, Vayu emerged in a spiral of indigo vapour, humanoid, yet ever-shifting, eyes of pale lightning. Gasps rang from riverbanks. Hollow posters had never depicted spirits, only diagrams of core energy. Seeing one alive, towering, rearranged people's assumptions in an instant. The other drivers she'd conscripted mentally did the same. 8 winds whirled above the bridge. Vayu, Sirocco, Tramontana, Mistral, Pampero, Buran, Zephyr and Habagat. Their coils tangled like ribbons at Temple Fair pole dances. Together they formed a crown over Bangkok, thunderless but resonant. Boats drifted, hoses froze mid-spray. Even the police drones hovered at what felt like a respectful distance. Pranam cupped her mouth. A cheap smartphone selfie stick became her makeshift microphone, streaming straight to any channel that would have her. "These spirits are not fuel," she shouted in Thai first, then English for the tourists. "They are beings, and they choose their own path tonight." She looked up. "You're free to go." Half of her prayed they wouldn't leave her behind, silly attachment. But freedom had to include the option to depart. The spirits hesitated, 8 colossal question marks made of breeze. Finally, Vayu descended, face swirling. "You," he told her privately, "helped me remember Sky Song. I would carry you anywhere." She shook her head, tears blurring neon. "I just opened the door." He smiled, an eclipse curling. Then he and the others streaked upward, unraveling into slender streamers until even their glow vanished in the haze. A rush rippled through streets, followed by a roar of cheers. Strangers hugged. Children danced in puddles that suddenly rippled without any draft. Tuk-tuk-tuk. 041 landed with a gentle thud as the last gust ebbed. No engine, no power, just an empty shell now. The same for the others. They rolled to a stop beside her like deflated balloons. Sirens keened from both ends of the bridge. Police vans disgorged officers in white helmets. Pranam raised her hands, palms open. She expected handcuffs, maybe worse. Yet the officers paused, uncertain. Crowds pressed behind them, phones raised like shields. Even here, image mattered. Arrest a driver, maybe, but arrest a folk hero on the first night of Songkran? Bad optics. An older officer stepped forward, his uniform soaked from earlier festivities. He peered into the sky where the spirits had vanished, then at her. "Do you realize the damage you've caused?" "Less than the damage captivity causes," she replied softly. He exhaled, droplets mixing with sweat. "We'll need a statement. But," he glanced over his shoulder at the sea of onlookers, "maybe after the holiday." A cheer erupted. Someone handed Pranam a silver bowl of jasmine water. She dipped her fingers, flicked droplets over the tuk-tuk's lifeless dashboard. Blessing or farewell, she wasn't sure. Hours later, she sat on a curb as dawn paled the river. The police notebooks were full, but no cell door had closed behind her. She was technically released pending investigation. For now. Pornchai ambled up, goggles pushed to his forehead, hair plastered down. "My shift's over. Thought you could use breakfast." He offered a paper bag of Kanom Krok coconut pancakes. She took one, steam curling between them. "How bad's the gossip?" "Depends. Half the drivers say you doomed our livelihoods. Other half say you're the wind bride and should run for Parliament," she snorted. "I'll stick to rooftops." He gestured at the mute row of tuk-tuks, their spirit chambers inert. "They'll retrofit engines. People still need rides." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe they'll learn to pedal. Did you know Bangkok had rickshaws once, human-powered?" "Humans still end up caged then, eh?" She considered that, biting into pancake. Sweet yolk, crunchy crust, a taste of childhood freedom. Maybe the lesson is, don't cage anything. Not winds, not drivers. On the river, a breeze swept low, rippling mirrored temples on the water. It carried the faintest sound. Vayu's laughter, she liked to believe, and the scent of salt far from any shore. She stood, stretching sore calves. "I'm heading home. Need sleep before tomorrow's second round of water fights." "You'll find crowds want selfies," Pornchai warned, half teasing. "Let them." She smiled, surprising herself with how light her heart felt, minus Vayu's echo. "But I charge triple for rooftop tours." He grinned, and they parted ways. Pranam walked through streets still wet and glistening under sunrise. Everywhere, hoses lay coiled like tired snakes, and lotus petals were plastered to slick asphalt. Above, the sky looked a little wider, as if new windows had opened. She imagined 8 spirits brushing the stratosphere, trading stories. The driver who heard their sighs, the city that finally noticed its own breeze. Under the jacaranda where this had all begun, purple blossoms stuck to her shoulders. She closed her eyes. The wind stirred, tousling branches, and the petals swirled around her in a lilac vortex. It might have been coincidence. It might have been goodbye, away. She whispered, "Safe travels," and kept walking, letting the breeze push gently at her back. Never again in front, never behind bars, but side by side with anyone ready to listen.